thank you for coming and joining us for this conversation. We are eager to listen to you about your short. It was found it moving. I think many people can relate to that. We have read about all these phenomena, but I would like you to introduce yourself, please, and your short. So shall we say Elizabeth first, ladies first?
Sure. I'm Elizabeth Jaeleigh Davis. I'm the director, co-writer, and co-editor of the Real Big Brucy.
My name is Mark Arsei, actor, producer, co-writer, co-editor for the short.
So the first question that comes to my mind, how did you come with the idea? There are so many stories. And how did this project come about?
Yeah, Elizabeth, maybe I can try to explain and then you can jump in if I'm too off track or wrong. But yeah, it was kind of the depths of like New York winter, and we were hanging out, and funny enough, I just bought like a light for a mirror I had, and I don't know if it was like the angle of the light or something, but it really my reflection in the mirror with that light really like made something click for Elizabeth, and was like, oh, like there's a character here, there's something here. And then we talked about that, we kind of brainstormed, and then it kind of came together pretty quickly. So that first scene in the short where my character's in the mirror with that light is kind of essentially the visual that was comparable to the idea. But yeah, the actual structure and the characters and everything came together pretty quickly after that like initial spark of inspiration.
Yeah, I would agree. That was the moment where I'm like, we should try and fight these winter blues by making something, first of all, and kind of using the resources that we had, which were, New York City itself. We do some shooting like in the subway and in the park, but also our apartments because they were warm inside. So I was really interested in just exploring kind of like a descent into madness from a man who maybe too closely identifies with childhood because that's the persona that he is presenting to the world, and that's what he's famous for, as a, like the host of Blue's Clues kind of thing. And then what happens to him when he tries to fulfill the things that a typical man would want to, like getting into a romantic relationship with a woman and feeling connection in that way, but being rejected because he hasn't quite embraced that side of himself yet. And his kind of spiral into madness to comic effect.
When creating the characters, when thinking of this project, was there any second thoughts? Any second thoughts about how to deal with the story, or why a short and not a longer production?
Yeah, again, feel free to edit me, Elizabeth, but my feeling was it was like a fairly contained story, and it was the length that we felt like it needed to be. And then I think also we did have some limitations, like Elizabeth mentioned, in terms of like the scale of the production or anything like that. But I think the biggest reason was just like that was the story we kind of wanted to tell, and in the time that we felt like it needed.
Yeah, I also feel like because it ends on a joke that's being set up from the beginning, it didn't necessarily need to be longer than that. I kind of like how quickly it moves through these different scenarios. You may not necessarily know where it's going to go, but I feel like we totally capitalize on the humor of this man having this sock puppet and where it leads from there, without spending too much time on it. We're like in and out of the joke. It's only 5 minutes long. You're gonna go on a little ride and then be satisfied at the end.
Was there any challenge in the production that you have? Any challenge in setting?
Yeah, I would say there were a
Oh,
few.
and then how
yeah.
you handle that?
Yeah, so it was a super tight space that we were shooting in. It was a studio apartment. So we just kept changing the lighting to make it look like different times of day. And only shooting in one corner because there just simply was not space available for us. And then I would say during production also, sound was kind of a big issue. We had sound equipment, but we're in the park and there's tons of airplane noises and dogs barking, and it was during the winter, so it's a lot of like crunchy leaves on the ground. So we
Radiators too.
actually, what's that?
Like a radiator too, like a loud banging radiator in the apartment as well.
We were able to solve that in post-production by finding this AI software that perfectly isolates the dialogue from, the rest of the noise that was not good for us. So it was incredible. It was truly a miracle that we found this, and we cleaned up the dialogue so well that we had to actually add in some diegetic park sounds to make it feel more alive because the vocals were so perfectly isolated.
It seems that you did a terrific job with the lighting, because I have seen in the studios, and this is a school that I was a while ago, in which they were showing us a room and it's a window and how it transformed into a French restaurant, a home, everything. So very good at lighting. How did you come about with this title?
So after we had the character, I think so first kind of like once we had the backstory is like, okay, here's this like Elizabeth mentioned, like this Blues Clues-esque child entertainer. He needed to have kind of like a bit of like a larger than life or like energetic presence for like children entertainment, right? So yeah, I think that came with the territory of like that name at least. Yeah.
Yeah, we tossed around a few different names, but I think we landed on the Real Big Brucy because we are exploring the different sides of him. So who really is the real one? Is it the one that's this super, wonderful, gentle, happy-go-lucky guy that, is entertaining kids with talking to a sock puppet? Is it more of like the normal, kind of sincere guy trying to ask a girl out on a date? Or is it the totally unhinged version of that where he's flashing Twitter with his sock puppet penis? So it's like, maybe he's all three of those things, but because different parts of him has been suppressed, they're kind of expressed in maybe negative ways or like not healthy ways. So yeah, I think that's how we landed on like the Real Big Brucy. So you wonder what's underneath.
Yeah, it's contradictory, but at the same time, I found it catchy. It opens your appetite to see what is this about. What's happening in there? Have you had chance to screen it before? And if you have, how has the audience react?
We've we've only screened it for friends and then like our respective families. So not had like a theater full of people just yet, but yeah, I at least when we did the screening with friends, it was very special to be a part of the experience of they're kind of like along for the ride, and then there is that pivot point about like 4 minutes in or so, and then the reveal at the end. They're like, oh my God, like they just had like kind of the reaction we were hoping for, where just like shocked, like very surprised, like could not have guessed like that was the way it was going to go. So that was like very gratifying to hear. Absolutely.
Did you have any when you were in the production, did you have any feedback from people collaborating? I don't know, the actors, the people who are behind the camera. Did you interact with that? Did you accept feedback, or you reject? I have read that some directors reject any feedback, but others embrace it. So how is your process?
Yeah, I would say that it was pretty insular because Mark and I wrote it and then he acted in it and I was shooting it. And then we had one friend come in and play the role of the girl. And then Mark did the rough cut and then I did the final edit. So it was just he and I bouncing stuff off of each other. So there wasn't really anyone else collaborating on it, honestly, besides the two of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did the audience like the character? Did they?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I
No,
think
go ahead.
responded very positively. I think one of the reasons is because they're friends with Mark. So and Mark is not he's not an actor per se. Like he can act, but that's not what he's pursuing in his life. So to see him in this crazy role, because also none of that is his personality either, I think was very exciting for our friends and very fun, which is a reason why I'm really looking forward to seeing it with an audience of strangers to see how the jokes land, how they actually feel about it. Because there's obviously like a connection of you already know the person you're watching, but seeing with people totally blind to all of it. And if they laugh, if they don't laugh, I think will be really important for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And what would you like the audience to take with them after watching this short?
I think at least for me, kind of like Elizabeth mentioned earlier, there's a lot of questions of like identity and how people's opinions of you or how you like portray yourself, how like you kind of internalize that in terms of like your own identity. So I guess just I don't know. I guess aspirationally, like being more self-actualized about all those stuff, about identity, how you think about yourself, how you present yourself, and how that ebbs and flows in your life. I think it was a challenge for me was portraying essentially like three different characters, right? Like there's the entertainer Brucey, there's kind of like we joked like the OnlyFans kind of Big Brucey, right? And then kind of like the date Brucey. So very different like headspaces. And yeah, but at the end of the day, I hope they just have a good time. Hope they, like Elizabeth mentioned, like laugh at it, enjoy the ride, I guess,
Elizabeth, anything else you would like to add? What do you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Mark said. I think it's interesting to, think about people in the public eye and the image that they present and how we view them because of this, but there might be all sorts of different sides to people. There's a lot of like idol worship with celebrities, and then you hear something terrible that you did, and it goes to show that you don't really know a person like that that's in the public eye. And I also think it's interesting just to think about how anybody responds to like romantic rejection. So this guy, you know, he kind of like finally feels a connection with somebody and thinks like, I'm on the right track, and then kind of shoots him down, and he handles it in an insane way. Which I think people can relate to because it's such a deep wound sometimes. But yeah, I think it's fun to think about those ideas, but at the end of the day, I just want people to laugh a lot and think, that was fun, that was weird, I like that. But honestly, just have a good time watching it.
Yeah, and like Elizabeth mentioned, it is like 5 minutes. It's pretty tight. You're in or you're out. So it's like hopefully the ROI is there, right? Like, oh, I spent 5 minutes. I had a good laugh. Like that was an interesting story. Yeah.
You mentioned that in this project you collaborated closely. What did you, how did that help you to develop more your craft? Was that any, you think is this going to be something that's going to has influenced your craft, the way you approach your creations?
Yeah, I guess I can go first. I think Elizabeth's definitely more experienced than I am, so I think kind of seeing her process up close was like very educational. You know, particularly as like being the acting side of it and like trying to execute. Yeah, but kind of all the facets, right? Like I think it's maybe like a better writer in general, like just beyond like screenwriting, better writer, better or like more thoughtful about like images and particularly like structure and how to tell kind of like a communicate a lot of information like succinctly. So I think even there's lessons even beyond just the craft that you know, I took away or like I think about a lot whenever I watch or talk about the short.
I would say my takeaway, because my previous projects before this, especially the one right before this, was a pretty substantial TV pilot. So it was a half hour, spent years on it. And that was really fulfilling. However, I think this project was so much fun because there was no pressure on it. It was just us two really just making something because we just wanted to tell this like kooky story, and didn't really censor ourselves and think like, oh, people aren't gonna like this. We were able to be a bit edgy and zany and unconventional because there was this lack of pressure on it for me. And it was really just me exploring something that I thought was really fun, and gratifying. And it's just amazing that it's, you know, going to this festival, for example, because I truly did it as an exercise in like creativity.
It seems that you had, when you talk about the project, it seems that you really had a good time doing this. That's you transmit that to the audience. You really enjoy it. And before we go, you said that you would like the audience to enjoy it, to have maybe some reflection, but mainly to enjoy it. Why that a male character? Why not a female character? Or not why another character? Why center? Not only men are rejected. So was there any reason?
I have explored like female psyche and sexuality in like most of my work. And I think one, it was because Mark was available as the actor. So, and he was right there. But two, I do think it's really interesting in society right now, like men are being given all these different messages about how to behave romantically and towards women. There's kind of this weird space to operate in where, you know, I think there's a lot of men like feeling stuck in how to pursue that side of themselves because they're kind of being shamed away from it, and for good reason in so many cases. Um, I just think, yeah, I just really wanted to explore that side of the male psyche. I've also been in situations where I feel like I've been the woman in a situation like this, where a man is reacting really strongly and negatively to his perceived rejection, whatever it may be.
Mm.
And I'm not making, I feel like in the movie, we're not making fun of him, really. I mean, it's funny, but I think he's just a really fascinating character. Honestly, I really like him as a character. I think he has good intentions. He's just going about things in a weird way, but maybe that's going to work for him in the end. Yeah. I don't know, Mark, how do you feel?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with a lot what you said. Piggybacking off the character aspect, I think it's really honest, his reaction, in the sense that he's kind of sheltered as a celebrity. So like there's a naivete about like dealing with other people, or there is that like power dynamic a bit between him and we name her Hannah, but we don't never say her name, I think, in the actual short. But that parasocial social relationship that he's kind of like building on. Yeah, I think totally agree with Elizabeth. Like there's a lot of public discussion or like ambiguity about kind of like benevolent masculinity, I guess. And I think there's a lot of interesting layers about like celebrities, parasocial relationships, and kind of like what happens to a celebrity like after they're out of the limelight, like what they're like after their peak, you know. That's like the side of them you don't see. So it was interesting to kind of like think about those possibilities as well, and kind of like act one out, you know. We hope you see the Real Big Brucy and have a great time watching it.
Please check out the Real Big Brucy at the Philadelphia Latino Arts and Film Festival. So excited to see you there.
And with that, we thank you for your time and for sharing your work with us. We're looking forward to have you with more productions and future festivals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was
Lovely
great.
to meet you. It was very fun.